What's happening, 7th graders? We're back. 1.4, example 3. And they're going to throw some curveballs at us here. So some of this stuff is hard to remember. So I would really recommend keeping your notes handy when you're doing your assignment and your test. Okay? So evaluate is another fancy word that they like to use in the math world that just means solve or figure it out. And we're starting with -2 to the second power. That means I have -2 twice. And notice how this one's in parentheses and this one is not. And we'll see what the difference is. So what do we do here? We rewrite it as -2 times -2 because we do that 2 times. Okay? And so we just multiply. Remember, a negative times a negative is a positive. So we end up with 4. Now down here, it's different. And so this is hard to remember. It's very tricky. We're going to add some parentheses, 5 times 5 with the negative outside because the parentheses are not around the 5. And so now when we multiply 5 times 5, we get 25. But the negative is outside the parentheses. So our answer is negative. Now that one is tricky. It's hard to remember. So remember to keep your notes handy so when you see these, you can differentiate on how to do them. Okay? This one, just like the first one, we have -4 times -4, but since it's to the third power, it'd be times -4 again. Okay? So -4 times -4 times -4. And you end up with 16 because negative times a negative is a positive times -4. So now our final answer is negative. So we have these two make a positive down here, multiply it again times a negative, and you end up with a negative answer. Okay? So remember, these are tricky. Keep these notes handy. There's a link to them on the slideshow. All right, let's take a look at some more here. So here's some expressions that we're going to evaluate, and let's watch the tutorial and see how they do it.
Evaluate the expression, -8 squared. Now notice we have an exponent. So when we evaluate exponents, remember that -8 is the base. And the exponent tells us how many factors of -8 will be multiplied. So in this case, our exponent is 2. So that means we multiply -8 twice. So we have -8 times -8. Also notice that there are parentheses around our -8. This means that the negative is included. So we write -8 times -8. Now let's multiply. We have 8 times 8, which is 64. And then we have 2 negative signs. So that means we multiplied 2 integers with the same sign. So our product is positive. So -8 squared is equal to 64. Let's try another example. Notice there are no parentheses around the -9. So this is read as the opposite of 9 squared. And we will also evaluate this expression differently than we did with -8 squared. Since we have the opposite of 9 squared, we will write it as the opposite of 9 squared. So 9 squared is 9 times 9. Now we can evaluate. We have the opposite of 9 times 9, which is 81. So the opposite of 9 squared is equal to -81.
Tricky, tricky. Keep that in mind.
Let's try one more example. Again, we see no parentheses, so we will read this as the opposite of 5 cubed. So to write this, we have the opposite, and then we write out 5 cubed, which is 5 times 5 times 5. So let's start multiplying. We have the opposite of 5 times 5, which is 25, times 5. And now we multiply 25 times 5, which is 125. So we have the opposite of 5 cubed is equal to negative 125.
All right, keep those notes handy. Let's try a few more together here. All right, so evaluate the expression. We got -3. This time it's in parentheses. So we multiply -3 times -3, and we end up with +9. Same thing here. It's in parentheses. So -2 times -2 times -2 is end up -2 times -2 is 4. Times -2 again would be -8. -7 squared. Notice how this is not in parentheses, so we read it as the opposite of 7 squared, so it would be -49. Same thing here, the opposite of 6 cubed, and we have 6 times 6 is 36 times 6 more. What is that? -216. Okay, so if you're not sure how we got some of these, make sure you bring your questions to the Google Meets. Write them down in your math journal. But that is it for example 3, and I'll see you at the next one. Have a good one.